Hello everyone, welcome to this week's lesson. This lesson is going to be all about project management. I'm going to give us just a few minutes here before we get started. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to join us before we dive into everything. So I am just going to give us till about the 5-minute mark, and then we will dive right into the content. I have a number of awesome spreadsheets to show you today, things I think will be really helpful, certainly would have been very helpful for me during my time at Microsoft. So these are really near and dear to my heart given my experience and what I used to manage in my day-to-day life. So I just want to be, again, give people time to jump in. So while we're waiting, if you have any questions in advance that you want to make sure we cover in today's lesson, go ahead and drop those in the comments section below. Let us know where you're from. Let us know if there's something you're excited about. And again, we'll get started here in just a few minutes. I want to make sure we, again, give everybody a chance to join us. And if you are like PMI certified or anything like that, also drop that in the comments below. I'm really curious to see how many people have gone through some of those more formal certifications for project management. I know, in my experience working with project managers, it's not always something everybody does. Not saying you need to or not, just kind of more out of my curiosity, because it's certainly something that I have seen promoted and pushed a number of times. So I'm very, very curious to see how people feel about that. And we'll just give it another couple minutes here, and then we'll jump in. This is going to be the first in hopefully a series here where we will go through and start to showcase some of the really big benefits and value that you can get out of some of the templates that we have in our library. And as part of this, and you'll hear me talk about this later on, but we are going to be giving away not only free access to the entire course and our entire content library to somebody who comments below, there'll also be a freebie at the end of this course or video, really, and we're going to try to keep it to about 30 minutes. So I'm going to make this a little shorter than some of the other ones we've had recently, just to go through quickly, give you some good insights, and then let you get back to your day so you can take some of this stuff away and start going and building better spreadsheets. So that's really going to be the goal here. But stick around till the end. You'll get access to that freebie if you make it to the end of the video, and if you comment below, you'll get a chance to get in on our contest, which you'll hear me talk about again here in a second. In case you don't get a chance to do that right now, we'll make sure that you get a chance to do that here in a little bit. So just one more minute and we will dive in. I've got our 5 templates we're going to be talking about open here in front of me, and we will jump in and get into each of these individually, and I will walk you through how they work, what makes me so excited about them, and hopefully what can make your life easier when you utilize templates like this, because at the end of the day, Simple Sheets, we're here to try to make your spreadsheets better and make your life easier. It's Simple Sheets for a reason. We came up with that name because it is meant to be so simple and make your life in spreadsheets just absolutely simple. And I apologize in advance if anybody hears any noises behind me. I've got a dog back there chewing on a bone. So hopefully she's not too loud, but if any of you have dogs, there's really not much you can do to stop them when they're in that mode. So I just apologize in advance if you do hear any of her noises, but hopefully my mic does a good job of muting those out. We'll see how it goes. So awesome. Well, we are right at the 5-minute mark, so I am going to dive right in. Before we get into the templates, for those of you that have not been a part of any of our other live streams or I've not had the chance to meet yet, my name is Tom. I'm one of the founders here at Simple Sheets. My background was as a project manager at Microsoft, working in their supply chain group. So spreadsheets obviously near and dear to my heart, but specifically the topic we're going to be talking about today, which is project management, is something that I did for a number of years, helping them launch big multi-million-dollar projects, and all we ever used was spreadsheets. I mean, believe it or not, you'd be amazed, but spreadsheets are really all you need for a lot of this kind of stuff. They're an amazing tool, as I'm sure all of you know, but we didn't use fancy software, and I'm not saying this to say there's anything wrong with your Asanas and your ClickUps and things like that of the world. They're great, but they are paid. They do get costly when you work with a big team, and Excel, for most of us, if not all of us, is already something your organization is going to provide to you. You don't have to ask for more money, and you can use it to do all sorts of things. And if it's good enough for, I think Microsoft's still a $1 trillion company, I think, or close. I don't know where the market is today, but if it's good enough for a company like that to launch, $100+ million projects, it's probably going to be able to give you what you need as well if you have the right tools to make it happen. So with that said, let's dive into our templates. Let me go ahead here and get my screen shared. We're going to move me down to the corner. And you'll see in front of me, I am going to be starting with our Kanban template. So Kanban is one of the ones that I think most passionate about, because this is how I like to see projects. I understand other people like to look at them a little differently, or like to look at things more in like a Gantt chart format, for example. But I mean, we'll get into that in a second. But this is the one that really is really important to me. Like, this is what I like to use when I am managing big projects, because it lets me see it more visually, and it lets me kind of pull through things as I need to and keep track of what's coming up next. So that's why Kanban, I think, is super, super valuable, and it gives you a nice board that can be visualized. I'm sure some of you, if you work in manufacturing, may have had a physical Kanban board. I like the digital one, just personal preference, and I think it's really nice to have it in a way. It makes it a little easier to share, a little easier access if you're out of the office, that kind of thing. But if you're familiar with Kanban, this is going to be the template you're going to want to be using with Kanban. As we go through this, by the way, I'm really curious to see which of these templates that you all like most, so drop that in the comments below as we're going through. If there's a template or a style you like to use for your project management, I'd love to hear more about your experiences and where you are with your project management, because everybody does it a little differently, and not saying anyone's better than the other. I'm always kind of curious to learn. So when you get into a simple sheets template, and I'll talk about the template here, it's going to be very similar across all these. You're always going to start with an introduction. This page or this sheet inside of your spreadsheet is going to just give you the examples and how to customize the template, how to use it, directions. This comes standard in every single simple sheets spreadsheet template that you purchase. We do this because at the end of the day, these are templates. We want to make these accessible to everybody, and we want to make them extendable, right? So if it's not perfectly set up for what you need, you can look at this and understand how easy or hard it is to customize. Many have, macros and other things built in, right? So you will need a little bit of insight into how to use some of the more advanced tools sometimes to customize, not all the time, and that's why we give you a customization difficulty number, just so you get an idea. You then have typically a setup. So this is where you're going to put in and specifically in the Kanban, you're going to have your different Kanban boards, your different projects you're working on, your team members, and this is going to allow you to assign these people to your Kanban board as we go. So this is all kind of setup stuff. You really only have to do this typically once. You can obviously use this template over and over again, right? So make multiple copies if you need to for different organizations you work with. Let's say you need it for your work, but you also want to use it for personal, right? You can create what you need for that specific thing, fill it out with all the setup. Usually this should only take you maybe 5-10 minutes to get started. And then you'll jump over into your actual project and tasks, right? So this is where you're going to list out all of those tasks that need to happen, along with what board they're associated with and what project they're assigned to. So you'll have this in here. This will be a drop down for you to include. So that's why it's important to set up this setup. And I'm going to view only here just so we don't screw up with anything. I don't want to edit anything too much for you, because we're just doing this as an example. Just know that with all the ones we go through today. But you'll be able to pull in whatever you've updated. You'll have all your due dates. You'll assign it to somebody, and then you'll be able to track it in here. And once you do that, you will be presented with your Kanban board here, right? Which has each of the individual things going on along with the tasks, and you'll be able to see visually, what's high priority, who it's assigned to, when it was due, and you can kind of move things through. And then you'll have an ability to go here and filter to get a better reporting view for how things are going. And again, this Kanban board right here and the dashboard are kind of the two things that I find most useful in this kind of template. And this is why this is something that was so important to me that we put this together, because this is pretty much how I ran a lot of my projects in my time at Microsoft, was just, kind of getting a full list and going through. Did use some Gantt chart stuff too, which is the second template we're going to dive into here in a second. But Kanban, just the visual element of it to me, and seeing the cards like that, makes it really easy for me to stay on top of things and stay on task. And this template makes it really easy for me to drop it in. And it doesn't matter what project or what you're working on, right? You can see this is a pretty extendable template where you could use this for any type of project, any type of task. It isn't specific to like supply chain, or it's specific to like a personal project. This is really something that, if you're familiar with Kanbans and you use them, this will work for whatever project that you're working on. So that is the Kanban template in a nutshell. If you have any questions as we go through all of this, drop them in the comments below. And also remember, if you comment below during this video, you will be entered to win a full access pass to Simple Sheets. We'll give you full access to everything. So again, drop it below in the comments. comments. You'll hear me bring it up as we go. I want to make sure if you want access to simple sheets, you get access to simple sheets for free. So drop that below and we'll get some lucky individual will get access to all of this stuff absolutely for free within the next 24 hours. So that's the Kanban template. Let's jump over to the Gantt chart next. I'm going to move it over here so you can see it a little easier. And one thing I want to mention too before we get too deep into this, if you aren't aware, obviously I am looking at these in Google Sheets right now. We also have Excel formats for all of this. So don't worry if you don't like using Google Sheets. This is just as an example so you can see what is available, and it was easier to pull up online like this. And I know a lot of people nowadays are using more Google Sheet stuff. Obviously, I got my Microsoft shirt on. I'm a big Excel guy personally, but again, to each their own, whatever works for you. But I just want to make that clear so you're aware that this is not just specific to Google Sheets. This does work for Excel as well. So if you're familiar with Gantt chart, again, same thing. I'm not going to talk too much about the introduction here as well. We've talked about this in the last one. It's going to be the same, different content, but same style for every single one of these templates. And so then you'll move over and you'll get your Gantt chart, your Gantt analysis, sorry. So this is where you're going to be able to see, again, similarly, projects, tasks, person in charge, starting date, very similar in a lot of ways to what we just looked at in the Kanban board, but you've got it in more of your Gantt format, right? So you've got all your stuff over here. If we scroll over, you can see, kind of how far along you are in a process, what is overdue. All of that will be in here. You have your off days shown, right? Your Saturday and your Sunday. So those are the days that, if you're not working, obviously those shouldn't be part of your calculations. And then you've got some other things up here, like we've got, spend, right? So we've got budget and things. If budget is important to you. Personally, in my days at Microsoft, we didn't really track budget because budgets were so big that it wasn't really that important. But obviously with a lot of things, you're going to have to keep track of things like budgets. So, that's all in here too, which is something that wasn't part of the Kanban. So you get a little more in depth, right? So that's one of the reasons I like Gantt charts for kind of more in the weeds type project management work, right? Where you need to track a little bit more, and we'll get into more, we get into the Raci and we get into burn down, some of these other, we'll get even more in the weeds with maybe tracking specific things. But that's where kind of the Gantt chart is maybe a better choice for you than a Kanban if you need to track something like a budget, for example, or if you need to get a little bit deeper. Now with this, similar to the last one, right, you're going to have to put in data. This is all driven by data. And so this project's raw data here is where you've got all your projects, the tasks involved, people, etc. And you can fill this out as much as you need to get this started. So again, this is typically going to take you 15, 20 minutes to get started. And just having it visually here for some people is really, really important, right? So you can sit down and go, okay, what's the first task? What's the second task? If you don't already have that set for your project, right? And for some of us, maybe we already have it set because we've been working on this project for a while. But others, maybe you need to go in here and drop this in here, right? So you're going to put this in here, and then that's what's going to drive this chart and analysis right here, right? We're going to see what started, what's completed, what's overdue, and kind of how everything is going for your project. So these two are kind of the most high-level ones that you're going to be using typically in a project, at least in my experience, in a project. You can use them together if you want to. They kind of are other two sides of the coin in my opinion, so I would really only choose personally one, but we want to give you the ability to have either one for your project. So again, personal preference, these both will work really well if you need them. So just pick whichever one you want to run with and run, but that's just my opinion, right? If you find use for both of them, by all means, use both of them together. So that's the Kanban and the Gantt chart. Let's dive into the Raci next, which is going to be this template right here. So if you're familiar with the Raci, right, this is all about roles and responsibilities and things like that. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go through this and understand kind of where you can use this to kind of put together a outline for your team, right? And that's what this is going to be all about, is building out that outline of who's responsible, who's accountable, all this, right? I'm trying to stay high level with all this and not dive too deep into the concepts of each of these, because if you're in project management, I'm assuming you're familiar with some of these things like a Kanban, a Gantt chart, a Raci matrix, burn down chart, that kind of stuff. If you want to learn more about those, let me know. We can maybe go deeper into one of those in a future lesson. So just drop that in the comments below as well. But I think as we go, you're going to be able to kind of get a better idea of how these work. So let's jump over into the actual Raci matrix here, right? So this is just a matrix. Here, one second. As you heard me talk about earlier, the Dog was barking at me, so apologize for that. But what we have in here is pretty simply just a basic table for you to drop in your Raci, right? So typically, hopefully you had a meeting, conversation, whatever, with your team to outline these steps and who's responsible, who's accountable, that kind of stuff. But you need a spot to keep track of this, right? You need a spot where you can then share this with other people so that they can see this and get an idea of who is responsible, etc., right? And that's where this specific sheet will come in, right? So you'll be able to go in here, put the task in, the category, the name, and then you'll put in your details right here. And we've given you a space to add in as many different lines as you want. So typically Raci, RACI is the kind of the main four, but I've seen at times people use more options, right? And they might have other things they like a sponsor or project manager, right? Which they may not be actually responsible, but they might need to be informed, right? So you can add in as many people as you need for the different roles involved in your project. And these are, you can see this right here is the actual tile, right? So this is more of a design choice, so you don't worry about that, but you fill it in on the specific cell involved in that individual, right? So put all your people in your team in here, tell them what they are, are they R, A, C, or I for that specific task. List your tasks here, you've got your categories, and then you can number them there. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy way to track your Raci. Let's jump over to objectives and key results next. This is going to be something that's going to be really important for you to add in, like it says, the objectives and key results that you're looking for, so that you can, again, keep track of this, right? And that's what a lot of this is all about. If you're obviously project management, if you've worked in project management, it's a lot about tracking and then holding people accountable and making sure people are following those tasks and those goals that need to happen. And that's where these next couple of sheets, like the Raci a minute ago and the objectives and key results here, come in to help you understand how your team is doing, what are those key objectives and results that they're working for. So again, similar introduction sheet, just like the rest of the templates. It's again going to be common among all of the Simple Sheets templates that you get access to. And then you've got your you've got your objectives database, right, which is where you're going to put in, again, different areas. And a lot of this, again, setup stuff typically only going to take you, if you know your project, you know what's going on, 5, 10, 15 minutes. You're doing this in either Excel or a Google Sheet, both of which should be tools you have hopefully free access to, right? So you're not worried about, you're not paying for new software to use this stuff, so you can use this as many times as you need to for whatever projects that you're working on. And then you're going to have this this built out here where you've got your objectives with your key results, right? So you'll see the objectives database here filters in and shows up here on the different individuals and things like that you can put. And then you actually have your objective description that you'll be adding yourself right here. This is all just placeholder stuff, so ignore all this for now. Your target, and then you've got your results over here, which you can then see in a big dashboard right here, which this is one of the more fun dashboards in all of our templates. We've got some really awesome dashboards in a lot of the Simple Sheets templates, which can make it really easy for you to then present this to somebody on your team, right? As a project manager, I'm sure, at least if you're like me, right, most of your time was spent doing one of two things, either taking meetings and keeping people on task, or taking a meeting to show off the project and where the status is and give somebody an update as to how things are going, right? Those are really the two main things that I would do all the time when I was at Microsoft. So this is the kind of thing where we streamlined that ability now for you to be able to present this information if you've continually kept it updated with all the tasks and things like that going on. And as you've kind of seen as we've gone through this, right, if you are using multiple different templates, feel free to copy and paste between the two, right? You don't need to be reinventing the wheel with each new template that you're working on. If you have specific tasks, right, you've seen tasks in a lot of our different templates so far, just copy and paste them into other spreadsheets, right? You don't have to type them back in, right? So some of the setup work you can actually do once for your whole project instead of once for a template, and then you can use it in subsequent templates. And we've tried to keep as much as possible the verbiage and the way we speak about the template the same across templates, right? Using the words like task or project instead of switching them to other words that mean the same thing but are different, right? To try to make it clear that these can be the same across different templates, right? And that's something that, again, it's all about simplicity. It's in the name of the company, right? Simple Sheets. We're trying to make this easier and simpler for you to use templates to be more successful with your spreadsheets. This is something that, and you've probably heard me say this before if you've seen any of our other content, this is something that I desperately wanted and was something that really pushed us to build this, was having so much trouble managing all this, when you're managing 20, 30 projects at once, you're being thrown in the deep end. You need to keep track of so many things, and building templates and organizing yourself is important, but it is at the bottom of your list because of everything else that's stacking up against you. That's where this type of template and all these templates that we're talking about today come in so useful, because you're able to essentially skip all of that time getting yourself organized, just drop in what you need, cut down all of that time getting yourself all squared away from, maybe it would take you 20, 40 hours, just to kind of get some of these templates set up the way you need to. We cut that down by 90% or more, right? You may have to make a few adjustments. We don't know your business and what you're working on, so these are built as templates and tools where you can adjust them, and we tried to make them as easy to adjust as possible. And of course, if you ever have problems and you do have Simple Sheets templates, you can always reach out to our support team, and we're happy to help you adjust these as needed to your specific circumstances. But the idea here is to cut down a lot of that upfront time, make sure you stay more organized, which if you're a project manager, right, you know how important organization is. I mean, that's the core of what you are probably doing on a day-to-day basis. So I'll get off my soapbox for a minute. I know we're not talking about objectives and key results, but I wanted to make that very clear, because that's why this is such a fun project, a fun set of tools and fun product, and why we really want to bring this to each and every one of you. So let's jump over to the burn down, and then we'll wrap up with questions. I wanted to make sure we kept this quick and brief for everybody, because I want you to be able to get back to your day. Before we dive into this one, a couple, again, just housekeeping. Put a comment in the comment bar below if you want to be entered to get free access to Simple Sheets. We're going to be giving away access to one lucky person who comments on this video within the next 24 hours after this live stream. So drop that down below. And again, in a second here, I'm going to tell you about that freebie that you can get for sticking with us to this point. So just stick with us just a little bit longer, and then I'll tell you how you can get access to that free template that you're going to be getting at the end of this video. So let's talk about the burn down chart real quick. This is going to be the last one on our list of the 5 today. Again, introduction similar to everything else we've been doing throughout our entire video today. So again, you have instructions for how to customize, explanation, etc. Right? Always good to look at. And then you've got your burn down chart, right? So this has some awesome visuals in it that you will find really, I think, useful as you go. You'll have to plug things in to this to get this visual to work, right? So you'll have your project name, your start and end date, number of tasks, and then you'll have the % completion on your tasks, so you can see, how far along are you, where is your project going to end, kind of what's it tracking to, progress, and right. So you've got this dashboard. Again, if you have your tasks in one of these other templates, drop those in with the amount of time required to do them, the remaining time, right, remaining tasks, and you'll get your burn down chart put together. So this one's pretty straightforward. It's just one sheet, but this type of chart can be really, really useful for showing off how a project is progressing, right? And to my point just a minute ago, when we are a project manager, right, presenting your status of your project, I imagine is probably something you're doing, at least if you're like me, it was once a week, maybe, sometimes more, right? You'd send out reports to people and let them see how a project is going, right? You maybe have a weekly report that you put together over email. This type of charting is really useful for diving deep into that. And if you're like me, you don't really want to spend your entire Friday writing a report, right? You'd rather spend maybe an hour getting it done, and then move on to other things that are more important, right? The things that really are important to you, whether it's, finding some more time for yourself, or it's working on a different project that will push your career in the direction you want, right? And that's where hopefully that time you get back from using Simple Sheets and these awesome templates will give you time to either advance your career, spend more time with your family, whatever it is you choose. That's the beauty of it, right? It's more time for you. We're trying to give you that time back so that you can use that however you want. So that is going to wrap up our presentation of content today. I'm going to check over here and see if we've got any questions that popped up. So we can get in here. So I see, Adam, you said you're a videographer and you're asking if you can use the Kanban for managing video projects. That's a great question. And I see Kareem got back to you, but yes, it is definitely possible to use the Kanban for video projects. It's really possible for any type of project you may find yourself facing, right? So if you've got a project, you list them all in here, like let's say, you're I'm getting married in the next year or so. So, right, like we've got a videographer, right? And say you're working on weddings, you could put all your different wedding projects in here and you do it over here. And then you'd be able to pick from them and you could just make one board in that situation, right? You wouldn't necessarily need to have multiple boards. You could, right? It could just be like, you could have a wedding board and maybe like let's say you were working on more than just weddings, right? Let's say you were a wedding videographer, but you also did like corporate events, things like that. Your boards might be corporate events, weddings, etc. Then you have your names. You assign them probably to yourself, because if you're a single person team, you would just need you, but maybe you have other people on your team, other videographers you're working with, you assign it to them, give it a priority, start date, etc., and keep track of it. So yeah, this will work really well for anything. Creative projects like that, certainly Kanban will work really, really well for. Let's see, Tomas, you asked us in the Gantt, I couldn't see if the main project line sums up the detailed task. So work that way, or the user should set it up. Let's go back to the Gantt. Let me see if I can figure out what you're talking about here. Project line sums up the detailed tasks. I think we talking about this right here, and I apologize if I'm not getting. I see. Okay, so it looks like you got some help there. And so you're asking if you can make the templates work together. Yes, definitely you can do that. That is certainly something that is possible as you go through these, especially if you're working with Google Sheets. You can always create links between different projects. And the only reason I didn't talk about that during our entire video earlier is because you need to set that up yourself, right? We can't set that up for you because you're gonna have different locations for those templates. It works better for Google Sheets, but it also works with Excel if you know how to build those extensions between sheets. The only thing with Excel you have to watch out for is if you move the spreadsheet. So let's say you have it on your desktop, but then you move it to your like C folder, or you move it to your users folder, it'll break a lot of those connections typically, because that's my experience with it. Whereas with Google Sheets, because it's online, you're typically not moving those sheets around as much. So and it has that hyperlink that attaches it to that specific other sheet where it's pulling that data in for you. So definitely you can pull between, kind of like I was talking about, getting tasks between spreadsheets. I just would recommend Google Sheets personally for that, but again, you can use it however you see fit. So it looks like those are the questions we had, so I don't want to take up too much more time on that. Now, we are at the end of the video, and for all of you that stuck around to the end, we are giving you all access to the personal goals tracker template, which is one of our favorite templates for kind of individual use. It allows you to put together some of your personal goals and track how you're doing on those, right? Which you can kind of use for some work-related stuff too. It doesn't have to be, personal as in like your personal life. It can also be, certain things you're trying to achieve at work, right? Like a promotion, or, making sure that you're using, staying organized with your project management that you're doing, right? Any of that kind of stuff, you can use the personal goals sheet. So that's going to be in the link. There's going to be a link to that below. You don't have to do anything special. Just go click that link and you'll be able to get access to that personal goals template for free. That'll be up there for everybody who's part of the live stream. If you're watching this later on Rewind, sorry, you missed the live, so you're not going to be able to get that freebie. But show up to the next one, and you will get access to some of the other freebies that we'll be giving away. Or, like you heard me probably talk about with the contest to give away free access to Google, to our Simple Sheets library. You got to be here live to get access to all that. So if you're watching this on replay, show up to the next one live, and you'll get some of those awesome benefits. So that is going to do it for us today, everybody. Again, my name is Tom. I'm one of the founders here at Simple Sheets. We built this to help you build better spreadsheets and make your life simpler. So I hope this has been helpful. And if you have any additional questions, you can always drop them in the comments. We keep an eye on this, or of course, email us at support@simplesheets.co. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.